I'd like to just take a moment before I deliver my drasha to once again focus our attention on all those people who are not anticipating a restful Shabbat, whether they are those who are infected in hospitals or those who are working. Is there an echo? Is it hard to understand me, or is that calmed down?
I think it's fine.
Okay. I'll work to speak a little slower. Maybe that will help.
Maybe Tammy just has to sign on again.
I see. Okay, so again, I just want to take a moment to recognize the people who are going to have a very busy Shabbos, a very anxiety-ridden Shabbos. There are people, some of you may know, some of you may not know, who have relatives in the hospital across the city and across the country. People who are anxious and worried, and we have them in mind. I've been asked to dedicate the drasha this afternoon, this Erev Shabbos, in memory of Rabbi Owen Pechman, Rav Yosef Ben Dov, brother-in-law of Debbie Rosenzweig. So I'll share a thought with you, and then I'll let you go about preparing for Shabbos. Wish you well and look forward to seeing you on Motzei Shabbos Havdalah at 8:30. In the beginning, our planet was uninhabitable. Before man entered Eden, before mammals came into being, before fish or fowl or crustaceans or the sun or moon or the constellations, this earth which we live on swarmed with primordial waters. Submerged beneath a blanket of turbulent indifference, our planet could not host life until day 2. It was then that God ruptured the waters, diffused moisture and humidity, and forged an atmosphere capable of fostering humankind. And it was in that atmosphere's first moments that tiny droplets of that primordial water rose skyward, evaporating into the ether as if on a pilgrimage toward heaven. And our tradition tells us that in the face of that vapor's sacred climb, the forsaken oceans brazenly dissented. As waters rose, the tides left behind protested their fate. They accused God of discrimination and demanded both consequence and consecration. And sympathetic to their claim, God then took, in our tradition's telling, a solemn oath, a sacred vow to endow the lower waters with a higher destiny. Someday, he swore, they would be offered on the altar of his temple, and that, for Rashi and others, is precisely why tomorrow morning we will all read, Kol korban minchatcha b'melach timlach. Every one of your mincha offerings shall have salt on it, v'lo tashpit melach brit elokecha. You shall not abolish your God's covenant of salt. And this covenant, Rashi contends, is none other than the oath that was taken with the lower waters at the dawn of time. That Brit Melach, that covenant of salt, was made with the ocean, and its reach extends into our ritual lives today, when each of us, each week, season the bread of our metaphorical altars with salt. And salt, of course, as I mentioned on Thursday night in the Parashah Shir, is a compound saturated with meaning. It has shaped the fortunes of China and Europe and America, and as I mentioned, it inspired India to claim independence from the British Empire. It is the only rock on this earth that we eat, and over human history it has crystallized as a symbol of permanence and eternity. A covenant of salt, a Brit Melach, is binding and unbreakable. It is everlasting and indissoluble. Like the preservative that it is named for, it endures. And that is why, in the chronicled history of the Davidic dynasty, Ezra inscribes, Hashem natan mamlacha leDavid ulevanav. God bequeathed kingship to David and his sons, Brit Melach, in a covenant of salt. But this is my question. God swore an oath to the seas and the oceans that they would attain sanctity. So how does this sacrificial ritual and our sabbatical practice fulfill the oath that God made not to put salt on the altar, but to the sea water? He didn't take an oath to the salt. He took an oath to the ocean. And the truth is, 2 of Rashi's super commentaries suggest that I'm being a little melodramatic, which might be reasonable criticism at any time. And as you may know, they say, seawater is rather salty. And both the Maharal and the Siftei Chachamim say that God's oath to the oceans is fulfilled with the sanctification of salt. And I should go and ask another question. But my sense is that God is not an omnipotent swindler, and he isn't known for imprecision. So why would he make an oath with the oceans only to possibly satisfy his pledge? Why would he swear to the seas only to technically keep his commitment? God shouldn't be moderately dependable. He should be impeccable. The only avenue that I can see to avoid discrediting God's word is to claim that somehow sanctifying salt fulfills his oath to the oceans far more than simply elevating water. And it so happens that that is precisely the claim of Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. And he says that the sea's problem, that initial moment when the oceans complained, was its lowliness. As clouds drifted across the heavens and vapor scaled the skies, the oceans sat shackled by gravity. So Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky suggests when God swears to attend to the lowly ocean, to uplift the waters that were left behind, he demonstrates the extent of his devotion with the consecration of salt, that part of the seawater that never rises. Because even if every ocean turned to vapor, its salt would lie low and unchanged, forever tied to this earthly plane. With this, Rav Kamenetsky says, God proves that God chooses the lowermost and is committed not just to the lower waters themselves, but to the lowest part of the lower waters. With the salting of our sacrifices and our chalot, we salute the value of the lowest part of the lower waters. We prove that heaven does not attend only to those at the top. It does not operate only at divine heights, but lives in the trenches of our material world. God cares not only about the angelic or the celestial, but the physical and the earthly as well. Nothing is too corporal for heaven's attention. Nothing is too mortal to receive a ritual mention. And with this Brit Melach, with this covenant of salt, God fulfills his oath to the oceans by going lower than even they expected. He shows his attachment to the physical plane, to those made of flesh and blood and capable of pain. And that is Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky's claim. Salt lies on the bottom of the earth's lowest ocean, and heaven lifts it up. But there is another way to read God's fulfillment of his oath with a covenant of salt. Not to see salt at the bottom of the ocean, but to look precisely at how salt in the ocean cannot be seen. Any of you who've ever been to the beach can attest to the smell of salinity in the air, and any of you who have ever swum in the sea can attest to the briny taste of seawater. It will sting on an open wound, and it will leave thirst forever unquenched. But even with the aid of optical technologies, I have on good authority, the salt in seawater cannot be seen. So God's oath to the oceans in this reading is not about up or down or sacred versus profane or spiritual versus physical. In this reading, God's commitment to the salt on the part of the sea is about visible and invisible, about seen and unseen, about perceived and imperceptible. And when God consecrates the salt of the seawater, he demonstrates that covenants do not only speak to what is visible, evident, and apparent. Covenants reach out to that which is hidden within the waves. They defend those who go unnoticed and guard those who remain unseen. The Brit Melach is a lesson to all later covenant makers that a godly posture sees the unseen. And there is more that can be said on that subject. And when I send this round to you in print, there will be a little bit more on that note. But I will just finish off by adding that over the past 3 weeks, we have all been made very aware of the presence of invisible things. We have all been separated and physically disassociated due to the influence of a microscopic parasite. And it has been deeply dissonant, at least for me, to see the sun shining and the clear blue sky and the visible spring of nature, while knowing that concealed from our eyes a viral pathogen lies in wait to prey upon its next victim. Invisible things have power. And right now, hospitals all over the city are bursting with emergencies. And for those of us who are not doctors or nurses, to know this and to feel powerless to help can also be distressing. But while the doctors and the nurses and the healthcare workers are on the front lines of the visible war, there is an invisible epidemic spreading as well, one that cannot be counted or tallied or graphed or easily seen. There is an epidemic of loneliness and anxiety and angst. And these feelings are no less real, though they cannot be seen, because invisible things have power. But against these invisible things, against the anxieties and the loneliness and the angst and the fear, we all have the power to fight back. We cannot all be on call at the hospitals, but we can give comfort to the fearful. We cannot all provide care to the infected, but we can reach out to those who feel alone. I'm not sure whether it broke through on the headlines in this country, but I have access to British news as well. And in England this week, the government sent out a plea on Wednesday morning for volunteers from the public to help stem the spread of the virus and to care for the vulnerable. And they said they needed 250,000 people to step up to deliver food and medicine and drive patients to appointments and to call those who are alone. That was Wednesday morning. In one night, 500,000 people signed up and stood up to be part of this cause. Incredible numbers of people coming together at a time of national need to stand with each other and to help each other. And last night, all over the UK, you may have seen footage of this. People stood at their front doors and on their balconies and applauded the work of the warriors in the ward and gave a national clap of gratitude and recognition. And one cannot see, but one can feel the relief and the comfort that spread across that nation. And we all have the power to do the same here now. I'm so grateful for all that all of you are doing to bring comfort and calm and hope to those who feel alone, for participating in our current covenant of salt, our Brit Melach that recognizes the presence of things unseen and the power that we have to bring them to light. And I encourage you, now we have about 40 minutes left before Shabbat. I encourage you to take out that list that we sent around of all the names of our members and make one call before Shabbat to someone who you've not been in touch with, someone you may see in shul regularly but haven't reached out to. Give them a call and just say, I wanted to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. It can be 10 seconds. And this is me talking to myself as well. And I want to thank all of you who've reached out to me and Miriam and to each other. And tonight, as we all season our chalot with salt, let us think of all the unseen things in our lives, those that are in need of healing and those which should instill us with a feeling of gratitude and joy. And let us recommit together to fulfill that covenant of salt, that Brit Melach, in the days and week ahead, bringing relief to those in need and hope to those who feel unseen. I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. I will see you all, please God, 8:30 for Havdalah after Shabbat. And I want to thank you all and wish you all well. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Everyone.
Shabbat Shalom all.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Shalom.
You're welcome.